What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Dre here, and today we'll be doing a video that I've been planning on doing for a little bit. Had a little bit of technical difficulties just now and had to restart the recording. So if I'm not talking, or if I'm talking a little bit fast, I'm sorry. I will try to slow down throughout the video because I'm re-recording this. But today we'll be ranking the cars that I've owned. I've owned 26 cars. Yes, one car for every year that I've been alive. No, it hasn't been like that. I just make terrible financial decisions. But today we'll only be going over 19 of them because I really only wanted to do cars that I've driven or wrenched on or spent a lot of time with rather than just having it and it's sitting there or not getting to drive it because of whatever circumstances. Um, I appreciate all the support that's been coming in on the Talking Sideways podcast. Shout out to all of you guys for keeping up with that. That's every Saturday at 8 p.m. right here on my YouTube channel. Ziggy and I will be chatting it up with anybody from drifting, takeover, seeing that is transferred into drifting, and content creators in the car world, and seeing what their takes are on what it's like transferring from takeovers to drifting, or what their inspiration is in content creation. But that's enough about the podcast. Let's get into today's video. So the first car that we'll be doing will be my very first car. It is a 1991 Acura Integra. I will have a picture right here on the video. And this was a manual, running, driving 91 Integra that I paid $500 for. There's a story behind it. My buddy and I, Maurice, went in on it. He tossed in his bike. We made a deal that when I left for the Army, he would take the car. I was 18 years old. I was about to leave. So I learned how to drive stick in it, not completely. But yeah, that was my first car. And to be honest with you, you will never find a manual running, driving 91 Integra for this price ever again. So this is a solid A tier off of sentimentality alone. Um, I'm so glad I didn't get to do the things I wanted to do to this car. Um, yeah, they were really bad ideas. I wanted to plastic dip the wheels gold. I had a Blue Eyes White Dragon taped to the dashboard because I thought that was cool. The paint was terrible. It had the shitty old school JDM Tape X on it. It just was 18 with my first car and thought I was the shit. Um, But yeah, for a while I didn't really get to have a car because I was in the military. I was stationed in Germany and just really wasn't driving anywhere. But I did end up I got curious into drifting and cars in general. So I ended up getting a 2007 BMW 328i. This car was pretty cool. Not really exciting because it was bone stock. It was a 328i. It was slow. It was automatic. Nothing really fancy about it. I didn't know much about drifting. Thought I could drift in automatic, which you can, but it's not really like the same as a manual. Then I thought I was gonna manual swap it. So a buddy of mine talked me out of that because he was like, it's just not worth manual swapping that car. It'll be too much of a headache. Um, Nothing too exciting. This is the first car I ever did wrench on. I replaced the voltage regulator with my buddy Christian. Shout out him, even though he can't hold a flashlight to save his life, but nothing too exciting. Solid C tier. Solid, nothing too exciting. Solid C tier. Um, Next up will be my '04 Volkswagen Golf GTI. Now this car, instant A tier. Even before I even get into the car, this was one of my favorite cars I've ever owned. This is the first car I completely learned how to drive stick in. Shout out to my boy Paul. He was my NCO before. Well, he was my homeboy before he was my NCO, but he did end up becoming my NCO, and he taught me how to drive stick in this car. And first car I ever installed a subwoofer on. First car I ever changed wheels on. It was relatively fast, had a KO4 swap, fast for its size, but fun car, great car, real sentimental. Axle ended up flipping or breaking, and it kind of just sat. And then I ended up selling it to another buddy of mine, and he has it looking really good. If I could find the pictures of it, I'll put it in the video. But yeah, great car. A little bit of a backstory to it, not too much. I think I only paid like $300 for this car, running and driving. We're stationed in Germany. If you know, you know. Cars are cheap out there. My next car, before I even get into this car, is an S tier. No questions asked. It was my 95 316i, my 5 speed, 4 cylinder, 52,000 mile European spec E36 that I traded an ultra wide monitor for. This car was my baby. Like, I did oil changes on this car. I put coilovers on it. I did wheels on it twice. I wish I had a picture of what it looked like with the white wheels before I ended up getting rid of it. Love this car. I had a 12-inch subwoofer that I installed in there. Did the head unit. It had a quick release steering wheel until a bunch of stuff got stolen out of it, including my steering wheel. And I ended up having to put the OEM one back on. But this car was the shit. I brought it back to the States. I ended up selling it. I traded it for my E46 that I'll get into in a minute, plus cash on top. But S tier car. Drove it from Georgia to Virginia, no issues. I think it only took like 2 tanks of gas because gas was relatively cheap at the time. Just a fantastic car. No complaints whatsoever. Solid S tier car. My next car is my 91 Honda Accord that I got at auction in Germany for $350. Stupid clean, 80,000 miles on a 91. Just a clean car. I used to call it my Yakuza car because it was black. It was stupid clean. It just looked super luxurious, even though it was just a Honda. But drove it around a bit, used it to get to work. The distributor went on it. I didn't know much about cars at the time, so I ended up not really doing much with it, and it ended up sitting and it got towed. So that kind of sucked. And I don't speak German, so I kind of just let him keep it. Um, Solid B tier car for looks and just the enjoyment I got out of it. Looks and low mileage. That was really just it didn't have much of a backstory to it. My next car is my 2004 BMW 325 Ci. This car actually made two friendships out of this car. With my boy Gabe, shout out to him. I traded my E36 to him for this car plus cash on top. And then my boy Tully, who I ended up trading him this car for my IS 300 because initially I was going to trade the E36 for the IS 300, but that guy ended up selling it to Tully. And I found Tully on Marketplace selling the IS, and I ended up trading him my E46 for it. It was my daily. It was manual. It was a coupe. Drove fantastic. Um, Great car. Solid. I'll give it an S. I'll give it an S. The only downside was that this car didn't have turn signals the entire time I owned it because I was too lazy to buy new ones. I bought some. They were pre LCI. This was a post LCI car, and I just never bought anymore. I just didn't care. I ended up trading the car to Tully for the IS. That was the end of that. It was supposed to be a drift car, and I just never got around to sliding this car at all. My next car is my '01 IS 300. This car was a great car. It was my daily for a while until it blew a tire on me on the way home. Come to find out, the wheel had three cracks in it that were really bad. Tully nor I knew that it had all these cracks. We ended up he ended up selling me some R33 GTR wheels for it for stupid cheap, and I ended up letting it sit for a while after I ended up getting my Subaru, and it was just a great car. It was a great daily 2J, pretty much bone stock, but it was a great car. It was a good daily. It needed paint really bad. It was primer colored. It was just colored in primer, and other than that, great car. I'll give it a B tier. Just because it wasn't bad. It wasn't horrible, but it was a daily for the most part. My next car I bought the same day. The same day that I bought or ended up trading for my IS 300, I got my 95 Mustang GT, my first Mustang. It was a drop top. It had a terrible rip in it. V8 manual, no title. Bought it as a drift car. Paid $700 for it. I really wanted a Mustang at the time. I really wanted an SN95. Found this for dumb cheap and ended up using it here and there to get around. Ended up getting towed out of my apartment complex, and nothing too crazy though. I mean, I have no big attachment to this car. It wasn't a bad car. It wasn't. It just it was just there for the most part. I'll give this a solid B tier. Not a bad car. V8 American muscle manual car for $700. It was great for that end of it. Um, while I had the Mustang and the IS, I ended up because the Mustang didn't want to start on cold days and I didn't have a title for it, so I couldn't register it. And the IS blue tires, and I thought it was something wrong with suspension. I didn't know what was wrong with the car. Probably was nothing. I ended up selling it for way cheaper than I should have. But I ended up buying my 2016 Subaru WRX. This car was the shit. Subarus get a lot of bad flack because of older generation Subaru problems, but this one was the shit. It was manual 6 speed. Drove it from Maryland to Georgia and back, Maryland to Alabama and back. No problems whatsoever. Ended up having to replace a transmission at like 120,000 miles. Still ran like a trooper. Miss this car every day. Solid S tier. Just a fantastic daily driver. It was fun. It sounded good. It drove good. Solid S tier car. My next car would be my 2004 BMW 525i. I don't have a lot of memories with this car. It was really expensive to fix it from what was wrong with it when I bought it, so I ended up getting rid of it. Uh, it was a transmission computer issue, and even used, they wanted like $1,200 from the junkyard for this part. So I said screw it and traded it for the next car. Not a lot of memories with it. Drove to my homeboy's baby shower with it. Other than that, nothing too crazy. It was just it wasn't too exciting. I'll give it a D tier. Not a shitty car. It just wasn't. It wasn't me. It was too luxurious. It just was not me. Now my next car definitely has a lot of stories to it. It's my '02 Mustang GT, automatic, drop top, looked like shit, drove like drove really well for how much of a beating we put on this car. Like this is I did my first burnout in this car, slid this car for like the first car I ever slid. Um Redheaded tires in this car. I ended up crashing it. Sadly, I missed this car. But God, it was shout out, shout out to the Walk 'em Down boys. If you know, you know. This car was a lot of memories to this car. A lot of memories to this car. I'm gonna give this car, I feel like I'm throwing around S tier. I'm gonna give it an S because it's just a lot of memories to this car. It was fantastic. Sentimental wise, it was a fantastic car. It had its problems, but it really solidified my love for getting sideways, and that's really what puts it at S tier for me. My next car is my 2004 330 Ci automatic coupe. I couldn't tell you how much I got this car for. I remember buying it cash. It was probably like $1,000, $1,200. Um, it had an overheating issue. Shout out my boy George. Me and him stayed up till 3 in the morning one day swapping the radiator, which that kind of fixed it at first, but then I think the head gasket inevitably went at some point, so I ended up getting rid of it. Not too many memories in this car. It kind of sat for majority of the time I owned it, so we're just gonna toss this right here in C tier. My next car will be. Let me look at my notes. I can't remember the year. 2001 Mustang, not a GT, not a 5.0, none of that. Regular V6. Paid $1,400 for it. I think it had like 114,000 miles when I got it. No check engine lights. It started up every time. I think the only thing I needed when I got the car was a new battery. Um, Other than that, I didn't have it for long because I wanted something faster. Because as a V6, it was incredibly slow, but it wasn't a bad car. It was good on gas. It was good on gas. It had no issues. It was just slow. Not a lot of memories to that, so we're gonna put this in C tier. My next car would be my 2003 BMW 540i, my first German V8. Um, I didn't have this car for long because around the time I got this car, my grandma passed, and I had to put money into fixing the Subaru. And the alternator went in this car, but it was a good car. It had a muffler delete, so it was loud as hell. Um, Slid this car once or twice, but it just it I don't have a lot of memories with this one either. I didn't have it long because I ended up selling it not long after getting it, but it wasn't a bad car. So we're just going to give this a solid C tier as well. My next one was a 95 Acura Integra. Going back to my roots, I didn't have a drift car anymore. Uh, I didn't have the Subaru anymore. So I ended up getting this car to really use as a daily. And it was cool. It was cool. It was, it was a Honda. I had it for a few months. It was manual. And I just didn't, it wasn't me. It really wasn't me. So I ended up trading this car for my E36 that's next. But yeah, it wasn't really me. Nothing against the Honda or the Honda boys as a whole, but it wasn't a bad car. It just wasn't me. I give it. I'm really flooding C tier right now. Really flooding C tier. My next one, I got mixed feelings about this car. It was my 95 BMW 325 IS. I traded my running driving Acura Integra for this E36 with a blown motor with the idea of I'm going to swap this motor. I've never swapped a motor before this. And I was like, I'm going to learn, which I did. Bought a motor, pulled the old one. It took me a year to get the new one in and get to the point where I could crank it. After a while, it had a crank no start, and I couldn't figure it out for the life of me. And I really wanted to get into a G. I really, really wanted to get into a VQ, so I posted on Marketplace and ended up trading it away. Come to find out, the motor that I bought had low compression on it. But I didn't, the kid that I sold it to, we both knew that there could have been something wrong with the motor. So it was no bad blood on that. Um, I learned a lot from this car. I learned a lot from this car. But it was also in horrible condition. It didn't have any rust, but like the interior was all stripped apart and had a blown motor. I hate to say it, but we're gonna put this in the D tier. I never got to drifting, and that's what I got it for. So I mean, there was really no point. I don't have any memories attached to it, nothing. So I mean, next car I didn't own for long. A buddy had it and was selling it. Another no title car that I was gonna just drift. Um, it was slammed on its nuts. It was my 2003 Cadillac CTS. It was manual. It was not a CTS V. So it's a little bit more rare than a manual V because who was buying in 2003 a manual Cadillac CTS? Apparently, whoever owned this car in New York first. Stud snapped on it, sat for like a week with three wheels. I decided to sell it and I finally swapped out the studs, but this car sucked to work on. I had to change the alternator on it when I first got it. That was the worst alternator job I've ever done. Screw you, Cadillac, for the way you build your cars. The studs suck to get to. They suck to take off. They suck to replace. I popped myself in the mouth with a crowbar. D tier. D tier car. The subframe was just rusted to hell. I would have had to swap out the whole subframe. Um, Traveling back to my E36 325 IS, I traded that for my first VQ, which was my 2005 G35 Coupe. That was a six-speed manual transmission. It was my first VQ. Me and some buddies got together, swapped the motor on this car because I went out and bought a new motor for it. Drove it around for a few months. Uh, Went to a couple meets, slid it a couple times. Went to a couple park and chill meets, slid it like twice. They're just like warehouse parking lots. Um, it really introduced me into the VQ platform and the platform I now love. So I'm gonna give this car an A tier just because it was a coupe and we're sedan boys. So sorry guys, can't get an S for this. Now where we're at currently, my last car on the list, my current drift car, my current car, my 2004 G35 sedan, manual transmission, six speed, stupid clean, Z1 catback, hand street basis coilovers, um, uh, leather bucket seats. It's the one that you've seen on my channel. The one that I missed because it's not here in Texas with me just yet is my baby. I love this car. It's my '04 G35, like I said. Solid S tier. 100% S tier. Matter of fact, put it at the top. Put it at the top. Let me put it at the top. There we go. Love this car to death. It's just fun. It's just fun. It looks good. It sounds good. It drives good. Great car. One of my favorite cars I've ever driven, hands down. It's just got that luxury feel that you look for when you get an Infinity. Even in an '04, like you just feel good driving this car. So yeah, that's my ranking of every car that I've owned and driven or worked on. This is something I've been wanting to work on for a little bit, just haven't gotten around to, and now it's literally 3:30 in the morning. 3:30 in the morning, and I just decided to make this video. So, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate all the support. If you want to be on Talking Sideways, hit me up. We'll get you in the Discord. We'll schedule you a date. Follow me on Instagram at moneysign.dre. And appreciate you guys for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.